So this last week I've been binging the Netflix miniseries Queen's Gambit, which is about a orphaned chess prodigy and her endeavors to become one of the best chess players in the world. Now, she and her mother have a bit of a drinking problem, and one of the recurring drinks in the show is called the Gibson.
It's good. Is that a Martini?
Gibson. I find the onion slightly more refined than the olive.
So that pretty much sums up what the Gibson is often seen as today, just a cousin of the Martini, swapping out the olives or another garnish for cocktail onions. But I'll talk a bit more about the alleged history of this drink a bit later. Spoiler alert, it is unsatisfyingly incomplete. But since you can't watch 15 minutes of the show without someone taking down another one of these cocktails, I figured let's go ahead and recreate it, and I'll also make an enhanced version that I think really brings out more of that onion flavor. We're going to start with a London dry gin, and because this is likely a San Francisco-based cocktail, why not use a local gin that also has my favorite name for any spirit, Bummer and Lazarus. I think it was named after the owner's dogs or something. But anyway, this is distilled from 100% California grapes and is delicious. 2 ounces or 60 mils into a mixing glass. Next, we need our dry vermouth, and just like with the Martini, the ratio of gin to vermouth is really up to you. Some people like equal parts, some people like a really dry cocktail with just a hint of vermouth. I prefer a similar spec to the Manhattan, so 1 ounce or 30 mils into the glass. And a friendly reminder to always keep your vermouth in the fridge, as it will lose some of its brightness over time. And if you want to go the extra mile, spray in some inert gas to remove all of the oxygen. This one is a mix of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and argon. You can use this stuff with everyday wine as well, but I find it's really useful for vermouths that maybe you don't use that often. We'll throw that in the fridge and give you a behind-the-scenes sneak peek. All right, then we're gonna add some ice and stir that to chill and dilute it. I like to chill it down pretty good here, usually about 45 seconds or so. And let's use this time to talk about the unsatisfying history of this cocktail. With most classic cocktails, the origins are pretty murky, and the Gibson is no exception to that. Now, according to David Wondrich in his book Imbibe, this was likely created in the late 19th century in San Francisco. But there's like 3 different people with the last name Gibson that this could have been named after, maybe Charles Dana Gibson, which was a really popular artist. But none of the original recipes actually mention that pickled onion, and it's likely that was added in later to distinguish it from the dry martini. Instead of that terrible V-shaped martini glass, I'm just gonna grab a chilled coupe glass here that I've had in the freezer and strain the cocktail in. Skewer a few cocktail onions with your pick and just rest it on top. All right, let's give it a taste. Our classic Gibson cocktail. Cheers. All right, unsurprisingly, this is a pretty simple drink. It's effectively just 2 ingredients. So it's really important you use a gin and vermouth that you like. There's just nowhere for them to hide. And the cocktail onions don't really impart much flavor here. They are pickled, but they don't really put a lot of vinegar into the drink. So if you really like a dirty martini, for example, you might want to put a few spoonfuls of that brine in there. But damn, these are tasty. But because that cocktail onion is such a signature ingredient of the Gibson, can we do something to get a bit more of that savory onion flavor out of it and impart it into the cocktail? And it's been a while since I've done Dave Arnold's rapid infusion technique using one of these cream whippers. So we're gonna pressurize the gin and cocktail onions with this nitrous oxide, and when we release it, it's going to extract some of that onion flavor, in theory. So we're gonna start by adding in 4 or 5 of these cocktail onions. Try not to get much of the brine here because we're really just going for that onion flavor. And then we're gonna add in our gin. Now I'm gonna go with about 4 ounces or 120 mils here, just enough for 2 drinks. Seal that nice and tight, and then we're going to charge that with 1 nitrous oxide canister here, and that's going to start to put some pressure inside the whipper and force the gin inside the permeable membrane of those cocktail onions. Shake the whipper in a non-suggestive manner, and then we're going to add in another nitrous oxide charger to increase the pressure even more. Another little shake and bake, and then let that sit for about 2 minutes. Now we're going to rapidly discharge all the nitrous oxide gas, and you're going to want to put some kind of glass over the top because occasionally you get some liquid coming out. All right, looks like we're in the clear. So what has just happened here is that any gin that was forced inside those cocktail onions has been rapidly pulled out and should have extracted some of that flavor. Remove the top, you'll see a little gas come out, and if you put your ear up close to it, you should hear some crackling of that nitrous oxide gas still fizzing. And you can even see it fizzing a little bit as we strain out those cocktail onions. Alright, let's recreate a similar spec using our new cocktail onion infused gin, 2 ounces or 60 mils into a mixing glass. And then same as before, 1 ounce or 30 mils of our dry vermouth. And to make this one a bit more interesting, let's try to add some bitters here. Now normally a martini would have something like orange bitters in it, but let's swap that out for celery bitters. I'm thinking this is going to add some nice, savory, vegetal notes that'll complement the onion flavor really well, so just do a few drops into the mixing glass. And again, we're going to stir with ice for about 45 seconds or so. And this time, let's swap out our coupe for a chilled Nick and Nora glass. We'll keep this garnish simple and just drop in 1 cocktail onion and call it a day. All right, our improved Gibson cocktail. Let's see if it's any good. Okay, yeah, that is much more interesting. You definitely get some more onion flavor, but it really does not overpower the gin and vermouth. The celery bitters are subtle, but a nice complement to the onion flavor. This is really nice. Let's grab our original Gibson just for a quick side-by-side comparison, and oh yeah, that is definitely more complex. I dig it. Checkmate, Mr. Gibson, whoever you are. Thanks for making it to the end. If you want to see more cocktails recreated from pop culture, I've got a bunch to choose from. I'll put a few links up on screen. You can also follow me on social media where I put out bite-sized versions of all my videos on Instagram and Twitter. And for any Reddit users, I often hang out in the cocktail chemistry subreddit. Cheers.